that drip. I know you're having some problems with your glue up, so let's see if we can figure out what we can do. So the first thing I do is I get a little denatured alcohol, and then I clean my surface. Okay, you can go, well, that's pretty clean, G-Duck. And I'll say, no, it's not. All right, it's dirty. In bonding, cleanliness is next to godliness. A dirty surface will produce a bad bond. It's probably not what was causing your problem, but just the same, that's the first thing I do is I clean this thing up, okay? And I put a fresh piece of white paper down. I would get one that's kind of clean, not the first two off the roll, little one below. Now I've got a nice clean surface to work from. All right, so the object is to bond that into that, okay? So the first thing I do is I'm gonna remove this one because I don't want it there while I'm doing this. And I'm gonna sand, all right? I'm gonna sand my piece, get it rough. I have 150, all right? The rougher, the better, okay? You don't want this smooth, all right? You want it rough. That gives you more surface area for the glue to adhere to, so when you're glue up. Or as we like to refer to it in the aircraft industry, bonding, okay? If you look up bonding, it's a much more precise term than gluing, all right? So bonding has a couple of things. It needs, a rough surface works pretty good here. A clean surface works pretty good. And those are the things that are really important is clean surface, all right? So let's say you've done all that, and I've got this sanded. Now I'll grab my, my new clean cloth, and you go, you know, I don't reuse cloths when I'm bonding, or I try not to, because that's called cross-contamination, all right? So what I want to do is I want to clean off all the sandpaper that I just put, the loose sandpaper. That's the first thing, so a good clean surface. Now I can go, man, that's okay. No, that's not okay. Your fingers have lanolin on them. You put the lanolin on there, it's like a release agent, and it inhibits the bonding of it. So, matter of fact, when you go into a facility where they do really serious bonding, like for aircraft, they make you wear white gloves. They won't let you touch anything, all right? So I remember that, and that's what we're doing here. So that's why I'm grabbing the ends, because they're gonna be cut away anyway, all right? And then I'll put that there for a side. Now I'll bring in my clean towel and put it over here. And now this surface is pretty prepped. There's not a whole lot you can do with this. You could swab it up and down if you wanted to, but I think that's a little overkill at the moment, okay? So now we've got that done, and we're ready to bond. So I have glue, and I've got my glue block, which is like that, okay? And then now I need to take a piece of tape and put a fresh piece of tape on there. All right, like that. All right. And then I will take the alcohol and clean that off. All right. Granted, this is overkill, but hey, you have a problem, so let's solve the problem. Now, the really important part is this, okay? So this is an A and a B part, all right? So what you really want to do is I keep mine back a little bit so I have some air in here, okay? And I do that for a reason, all right? Because it won't ooze out the top, all right? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put equal parts, and that's important, is to put the equal parts on here, okay? Let me get my glove on. All right, I've got the glove on. And while I've got the glove on, I'm going to clean this again a little bit. Why? Because my glove doesn't have lanolins on. So I can touch this all I want, and I'm not going to contaminate that piece. That's a little more important, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ooze this up and get the air out of it. Whoops. Oozed out, okay, but that's okay. Because I want this thing up to the top again. All right, let's get the air bubbles out of it. And you can see I have air bubbles in there. Okay, I want to get it to the top to where the key is both of these are full, okay? There's no air in there, all right? And one of the problems is if you had air in this one and no air in this one, you're gonna get more of that one than that one. And this is a two-part bond, so it's really critical that I get half of that and half of that. So the process that I just did right there by getting the air out gives me a nice full container. So when I go do this, okay, and I look down, and then also you want to push in the middle, or you want to watch what comes out, and you can rotate your finger this way or that way to put more out, but I'm trying to get equal amounts out. So in this case, see the first left one came out, all right? Now I want to go more, and I'm watching the size of the round pieces, all right? So now I've got my glue on the table, and the important part now, I'll draw this back a little bit just to take the air out. Put these back on. Make sure you put them on correctly so they don't cross, because if you flip them or try and flip them, A gets to B, it's going to get hard and you'll waste this stuff, okay? So now I've got that one done, okay? So the next thing I want to do is I want to mix, all right? So let's do the mixing thing here, all right? I'll zoom in on the mix here. So we want to do some mixing, all right? Back and forth, all right? I think what your problem might have been was you didn't get the right amount of adhesive together. If you don't get the proportions correctly or close, then what happens is the epoxy won't set, because it is an A and a B. So there's a exothermal reaction is what happens with epoxies, and you have to have the both components in there in whatever ratio they want you to do it. In this case, it's 1 to 1. You could do this out of a bottle, all right? But and then you'd have a little more control. But for us, this will work fine, okay? So now I've got it good and mixed up, and that's the key. You see me pushing it? It's like making, cake mix or cake. You're just pushing everything back into the center and meshing it up, back into the center and meshing it up. And I spend a little time mixing it. If you don't mix it, if you don't get it mixed thoroughly, it's not gonna glue up, and you're gonna have a problem. And I suspect, all right, without seeing it, this might be your issues, that your adhesion or your epoxy is not correctly mixed up or at the right ratios. So you want to pay attention to that when you do your next one, okay? So now I've got that. I'm pretty satisfied with that one, okay? Now I've got a glove here, and I did that, so I'm going to touch that with a glove because there's no lanolins. And then I'm going to come back and do what you do, which is easy. You just smear it all on. I like to put a little on this end here because it's going to be the lead end going in. And I'm going to put a little on here because it's the lead in coming out, all right? And you know that really, it's really all about those. So now I've got this nice glued up piece and it's all covered. So I'm going to take and stick this in here. Ooh, and just like that. And you know what? I know why I had this piece and thing there now. So this is very loosey-goosey, all right? Very loosey. So I'm going to stick that down there, see if I can salvage this thing, because if I don't, I'm going to put a lot in there. And the reason for that is apparently I screwed up this hole, which is why I didn't make a pin out of it. So let's see if we can salvage it by loading up the piece, particularly on the ends, with epoxy. And then let's take this piece and put it in there, all right? Let's see if I can get it to go in and set. So now I should have something there that I might be able to work with, okay? All right? Now I got a mess on my hands, but that's okay. We're just gonna come over here. And then the other thing that I do is I'll come back here and I'll clean these ends off. It's just less pieces for me because I straightened it up for a reason. And you might can see that in there. I doubt this one's gonna be very good, but you know what? There's a big hole in there. I really got wobbly on that one when I drilled it, okay? But nonetheless, that I think might solve your bonding issue, okay? So think about the keys there. The key takeaways here are, all right, clean surface, clean surface, clean parts, all right? Epoxy that is measured out accurately. That, I think, is your problem. Because if, like I said, the real key is if you have air in this one and not in that one, and you squeeze out, you're gonna get more out of this before the air goes out and then less out of that. And you're not gonna get a 1-to-1 mixture. You're gonna get maybe a 1/2-to-1. And that is not gonna work, okay? You have to have 1-to-1. So I think the key is prepping this tube, all right? And that's why I said, that's why I pull it back down. And then when I get it, it's almost like if you look in a hospital, they squirt it out to get the air out. Well, we're doing the same thing here. We're gonna squirt it out to get the air out. And then we know we have a full tube. Push it in, watch it, all right? Because you can vary the pressure this way or that way. If I go this way, I get more of this. If I go that way, I get more of that, all right? I wanna try and go straight so I get equal parts. But sometimes I don't do that. Gita's fingers are a little off, all right? If you do that, I think you won't have any more bonding issues at all. And if you do, it's gotta be something else. But I think that'll cure your bonding problem. I think you just might've got sloppy in your mix or sloppy in your proportions. And that just gave you an issue because, and it probably was the first one, maybe, because the second one, you'd pushed out all the air. When you did that one, you got it right, all right? So think about that next time when you're gluing up these pen blanks, and I think you'll have everything done. Gita signing off.